Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Yodit Mesfin Johnson. I am the president and CEO of New Nonprofit Enterprise at Work, and I'm really delighted to be joined today with members of our Strategy and Impact Committee. They will introduce themselves, and mostly our purpose today is to share. We're excited. We have just launched a new 3-year strategic plan with the support of Jane Fran Morgan and her team at JFM Consultants. And we're trying to think about like how to share what we're up to with the broader community and make that strategic plan more alive outside of the organization and with the folks we interact with. So welcome, everybody.
Thank
Glad to
you.
see you.
Hello.
Carrie, you have been helping to steward this group. Tell us more about what you all do and where you are now and what's coming up with the plan.
Yeah, thank you. So, hello, I'm Carrie Hammerman. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Chief Strategy and Program Officer with New. And it was my opportunity to help us redesign this strategic plan. Ours expired last year. And so we went out thinking about where we wanted to go and then a process to having a plan or going through a process that really was aligned with our values and our approach that would help us to think about how to grow and to meet the needs of our community going forward the next few years. So we were, as you said, working with JFM Consultants. And this process, we looked at what our community said. You know, we have our community survey, and we ask our member, the folks who we engage with in terms of our program participants and our clients and our tenants and so on. Hey, what's important to you? What do you think that New does well? And how can what are your needs going forward? And we have, we work with folks, we talked to our board, we talked to our staff, we thought about all the members of our community to get input and think about what is important for us to consider going forward. And so this group is our strategy and impact committee, members of our board who help us as staff members think about what is this strategic plan and how do we use this effectively to be on the same page. So we want to use it to guide our decision making and our goals and so on. And so we look to the wisdom of our external board members to help us understand how do they do it, what do they understand, and what do they see when they're not in this day to day. So it's been really great working with you all.
Yeah, Carrie, I want to credit you, especially because you're transitioning from New. So I want to use this as a moment to really thank you for your leadership. And one of the things that has been most beneficial for me as the person who's primarily set the vision of the organization, that you've been my partner in developing and stewarding a strategic plan that is sort of like the roadmap to that vision. And that's a lot of what we talk with our clients about is like, what are the steps that we're taking year after year to move us closer to that preferred future? And I'll go as so far as to say that will really be your legacy here at New is helping us to become not just a strategic doing organization, but a strategic thinking organization. And we certainly want that. And so you and I, when we were working with Jane, we're starting to like really think about what are the conditions in our sector within our theory of change. We named that structural racism, other forms of oppression, all of these things that kind of disconnect us from each other, from across community, across our identities, et cetera, also show up in the work of the nonprofit and social change field. And we were imagining that New could really help to shift the narrative from a culture of scarcity that pervades our sector to one where we're working together and we believe we're better together if we are learning together, if we have strong systems, if we have great consulting that kind of moves us beyond just traditional management paradigms, but to becoming just as committed leaders in the future. So hat tip to you for that. And hopefully this is a bit of a nod to, as Emily and Perry and Nicole sort of shared their reflections, a nod to how your great work certainly shows up in this plan. So Nicole, I'll throw it over to you. What themes emerged? Maybe you can introduce yourself, what your work is, and then share the themes that emerged for you in the plan.
So absolutely. My name is Nicole Cole, and I am the Strategic Impact Committee Chair as well as new board member. So I'm happy to be here and participate in this conversation. So there were so many things that jumped out to me while going through this 3-year plan. I will say there's a lot of highlights and great points of focus in this plan. I'm so proud of the work that you all did, constructing this plan. It's very intentional. The one thing I think, thematically that jumped out to me was the fact that New is really, really being intentional on sort of sharing power and intentional around sharing your influence that you have in the community with different partnerships, different community leaders, other partners, your clients, as well as your leadership, within and your staff, just really trying to make that sort of a flat structure and not this very hierarchical structure where all the information just feeds down or the directives just feed down. So that was really interesting to me. You don't see that a lot in the corporate sector. So I think you all have this really great opportunity to, really exploit that. Another thing I noticed is really looking for meaningful opportunities as well to engage with mission-driven partnership, to enhance community and your overall sort of client experience. Even just this conversation is sort of a nod to that. Just looking for ways to bring this strategic plan alive into the community, so that you can get the feedback and making sure that it resonates in the right way and hits the right way. So that's really what stood out to me.
Yeah, this piece around power, so many of us inherited organizational structures that are rooted in the history of this country and of this idea of, sort of the resources and the wisdom and everything sits at the top of the organization. And we know that that's contributed to burnout for leaders, to loneliness for leaders, to challenges of embracing innovation and creativity. And so for us, this idea of power sharing is not deflecting responsibility, but it is this idea that when we're cultivating wisdom and experience, both lived and learned experience from across not just our organization, but our board, but also with our clients, with our staff, with our team, that we're actually getting more creative and more inputs for how we can transform the future together. So that was an important piece for us. And then this influence piece that you speak of, and again, I don't know how we can design solutions for the future without the people that we hope will be impacted by them. So putting folks at the center, we like to say designing with and not for, has been a huge shift for us. And thank you so much for those reflections. Emily, what comes up for you with the strategic plan? What themes did you see? So you're on mute.
Sorry. It's like it's March 2020 and I don't know how to work Zoom. So I think like what Nicole touched on a lot about, like the intentionality, I think just being baked throughout the strategic plan. And that's something I really love about New. I've been on the board, just as background, like I've been on the board for 2 years, but I've been a long time fan. And I think like a lot of the work that y'all do and just even how it's shining through in the strategic plan is just like the intentionality around like the initiatives you plan and that the things that you get involved in and the way you operate. And so just like New being so deeply committed to addressing systemic racism and oppression and sort of how we can like align the strategic initiatives and strategic plan with those values and like and how you sort of go back to reevaluate that and like make tweaks and changes to the work you're doing to make sure that it like aligns with your core values, I think is just like really commendable and something that you rarely see within other organizations, and is really hard to kind of continue to like recommit to and actually pull off authentically. And I think like, I mean, even like authenticity wise, like that comes through just, that New is very like guided by this feeling of like love and trust and accountability, and like those are not often like things that are baked into a strategic plan, but I think the ability to like serve the community like really authentically and like help businesses that are working very closely on a lot of really important issues I think it's really important that those kinds of things are built into a strategic plan. So it's like nice to see that built in. And a shout out, just because I'm a data girl, I love like, and I think this is also like a Carrie legacy thing, the way that you actually continually measure these things, where I think a lot of people are like in the like nonprofit world or even the for-profit world are a lot about like, you know, one-off things and like, here's a initiative we did, and then like we don't really measure it and like hold ourselves accountable to like measuring up to initial goals and then like referring back to the strategic plan. And I think part of what this committee focuses on a lot is just like the impact that the different programs and initiatives that New has, how they're like impacting the community, and being able to like look at that data and how the data, like how you're measuring your impact and making sure that you're able to make those small adjustments over time to ensure that you still are like following the strategic goals and following the values of the organization, I think is just like really awesome to see, and it's like really fun to be involved in.
It's fun to have you here. I feel like you embody fun. So brilliant, and you embody fun. I mean, there was a lot that you said there, but we have for 31 years served thousands, tens of thousands of people and organizations at this point. And when Carrie and I both sort of matriculated into senior leadership, a conversation that we kept having is, how do we know that New deserves to be here? And how can we measure the impact that we're having? And especially during the pandemic, when resources were scarce and organizations were challenged, and all of us were experiencing the trauma of not just a global pandemic, but then racial uprising, right? Like, how can we ensure that the words we use and the things we say we care about in our mission and our vision, our values are actually reflected in our practices? And the only way we could do that was through data. If, for example, we say that we're focused on mission-driven organizations, well, where are they, and how many of them are we serving, and what's their experience been like? If we say that we want to be centering folks who have been at the margins, that we want to pull the margins in, then how are we gathering that data, hearing their voices, and mirroring what we learn? The other thing is, I think most of us have been in business long enough to know that the roots of strategic plans are actually in militarism. That's why you do a SWOT analysis, because you want to understand your threats and you want to understand your weaknesses. And another credit to Carrie is that we really are trying to shift towards this mindset of abundance, that we do have what we need together to create the world we need. The problem is that we've been socialized to love the problem, and we pay a lot of attention to the problem. And very few of us know, how do we get from what I find more often a shared worldview where everybody has enough. Most people want that, but we don't know how to get there. So we talk about it and we conceptualize it, but there are very few folks who are like walking us along that journey to getting to that preferred future. And that's where I think our plan is really rich, is we're like, we understand the problem. We're in the current context, right? Which is all that stuff you mentioned, Emily. But how do we actually start moving towards the future that we want? And how can we come alongside folks that are doing that? So this plan, while not perfect, it's no utopian panacea over here, but it's a step in that direction that we can begin to visualize actual steps that we can all take together, not just some group, not, it's not finger wagging or what have you. It's actually a loving, to your point, invitation for us to build what we need together. So thanks for picking up on that. Perry, I love when I'm seeing that head nodding, information.
I'm a trained social worker. We learn how to nod our head.
Come
as
on
if we're in
my
the back
friend.
window. So Perry Oren, excited to be here, new board member on this committee with everybody. I work at Jewish Family Service in Detroit, and the first time I sort of bumped into New 10-ish years ago was as a client. And Jewish Family Service, where I work, is still, quote unquote, a client of New nonprofit enterprise at work. And we've probably purchased or been part of 10 plus things through New And so we keep coming back, and it's not always easy. It's always challenging, actually. So we don't come back just because it's easy, that's for sure. What resonates, I think, with me is, so it's hard to go through this world as an individual or an organization, just sort of walking alone. And we all do walk alone in some way, shape, or form. And we all need to walk together. And so, like, working at an agency where I work in the so-called nonprofit space, it's so helpful to have an organization like New, and there are others out there too, but New sort of walks the walk and talks the talk. They are the folk who can stand beside us and help us. So as an intermediary organization, I think that's sort of in the literature what New would be called. So many nonprofits, social impact organizations, thousands of them, gazillions of them, are trying to do such important work, and we can't do that stuff on our own. And so New acts as a connector in many ways, virtually sometimes, in person sometimes, strategic planning sometimes, in a non-militaristic way, as Yodit pointed out, and all of the ways that New does that, because we nonprofits cannot do it alone. And so one thing in the strategic plan that is exciting to me and to New, and I think it's about scale and geography. It's sort of like New touches a lot for the last, whatever, 31 years in Washtenaw County and Wayne County. And the world would be better if New could touch more in Washtenaw County, more in Wayne County, more in every county region in Michigan, and, to infinity and beyond. And so I'm pretty excited that New aspires to sort of spread its special sauce all over the place, and hope that the funding world as it is sort of understands that many of the folks, the agencies that it funds, needs help from people like Carrie and Yodit and their colleagues to do the work that we all sort of roll up our sleeves to do in the morning. So scale and geography as an intermediary organization, priceless.
Woo, Perry, good night.
Was definitely, yeah, you're hired. And thank you. Thank you for all the ways you have trusted New as a partner. You made me think about, Perry, there are 54,000+ nonprofits in the state of Michigan. 90% of them have a budget of $1 million or less. And of that 90%, 63% have a budget of less than 100,000. So accessing, you're right, there are lots of us, but accessing resources when a common expectation in our field and from donors is that if I give you $1, I want you to put the majority of that to the problem I'm investing in, and not necessarily to the resources it takes to run your business. We actually have this weird dynamic here where, even though I'm running a business every day because it's what you call a social impact business or a nonprofit, people think somehow that, it's different than any other business. It's not. And so our nonprofit clients don't get those grants to pay for IT, which is why IT and back office supports are so important to us. And scaling the access of those is so important, because especially now in the 21st century, you need technology to be able to connect with clients. Similarly, not everybody that wants to address a social issue knows how to stand up and run a business or a nonprofit. And so our fiscal sponsorship practice and growing that is about making it possible for folks to make a difference in their community without the burden of running a business. And so in that way, New can, with alignment and, with doing some checks for mission and vision, we can make sure that folks can make that difference without the burdens of administration. The same with our learning communities. We know that we need all of us to be developing and learning and growing as we're doing work. And our learning communities are intended to be a place where not only are you growing a skill or growing your awareness of something, but you're also connecting with other leaders in the field for the exchange of wisdom and ideas. And so I would envision a future, and part of our New Center transformation, Perry, is about this, where folks are more proximate to each other in space so that those informal relationships and things can happen, but also that we can be learning together and intersecting in place. But also that over time, I'd really like to see us be able to use our regional and intermediary status to bring more resources to and through to those folks in community that are running, you know, a $10,000 storytelling program or a $50,000 a year budget, you know, org, right? So this plan, again, not perfect, but it is intended to kind of set us up and continue to build those building blocks to make a difference. Wow. And Carrie, you know, I nodded to this. I want to give you the mic back, but just want to appreciate you again for your leadership on the strategic direction of the organization and for your partnership. You've been my partner all these years, friend.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate the kind words, and it was not me alone. It was working together. And really it's that, you know, you've always been this great visionary and helping us see what the possibilities are. And I, you know, hope to try to think, oh, how are we going to get there? And working along with our really amazing staff at NEW to think about what are the means to push that forward. So it's been a joy. And I'm excited. I think the thing that steps out or like that we've articulated in this plan that I don't think we've ever quite said before is that we have the opportunity to shift the way folks think. That we've been really doing a lot of pushing, like saying that we don't have to accept the world as status quo. We don't have to accept the relationships and the systems the way they are. And we can think about, you know, about using our influence and our position to try to shift the way we're in relationship with one another, the way money flows, the way that things can be done. And so I think that excited me the most about this plan, that we were saying, well, all right, well, let's work together and let's give permission to, not permission, but create space for others to have those conversations and to bring folks together. So I'm excited, whether I'm here at NEW or I'm not, to sort of see how it continues to evolve and shift the sector going forward.
I can't help but mention that your transition is also a part of how we've been thinking strategically about preparing leaders in the organization to assume your role. And though no one can replace you, a lot of the work that you did in the organization put us in a position where it wasn't precarious for you to step away into a new opportunity after nearly a decade of work. And you and I would spend a lot of time talking about how do we make room for others to add their skills and talents and gifts to this mission. So while I'm so grateful and also it's bittersweet, it's by design too. And I love that. And I also love you mentioning care for the sector, because we do have to have strategy around attracting and retaining new folks into the field, folks with different experiences. And so one thing that I'm excited about in the plan is us trying to figure out a way to scale up benefits that can be offered, you know, health insurance and other benefits that we know are so vital to the care and wellness of the staff of nonprofits. So yay. Well, it's always fun to talk about it. It's another thing to be about it and do it. So what I'm going to ask now, I'm going to put y'all on the spot and say, let's come back in 6 months or 12 months and let's talk about how we progressed on the plan together as a committee. And for those of you who are watching, this committee, now that we've wrapped up the plan, is going to start to work on a public event this fall of 2024, where we bring in some folks who are similarly thinking about and acting upon strategies to transform the future together. Friends, I appreciate you. Yeah. I'll see you all in an upcoming committee meeting without
Here,
our
here.
Carrie. Yeah.
I'm gonna miss
And,
you all. Thank
yeah.
you.
We're gonna miss
What's
you
that?
too.
We're gonna
We're
miss
gonna
you too.
Yeah. But we'll stay in touch. I'm not gonna
I
go
hope
too
so.
far.
Oh, listen, you know, we have a pattern of recruiting former staff to our committees. I was just waiting. I was just gonna give you a minute to get settled. But you may be back on the committee.
It's not a threat. I appreciate that. It'd be fun.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
tuning in.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.